She's a community favorite, the brilliant mind behind the much discussed Seeker's Notes location rankings, and a passionate force behind the Bears for Bairns charity. Catherine, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to finally have you.
Wow, Sunny, thank you for that beautiful introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're most welcome. Before we dive deep into magical maps and hidden object halls, I'd love for listeners to hear a bit about what you've been working on outside of the game. You're known for giving back through Bears for Bairns, and word on the street is there may be more magic on the way in the world of Seeker's Notes. Care to give us a sneak peek into what you're working on?
Well, I do work on the charity Bears for Bairns, which brings teddy bears to kids that are stuck in the hospital at Christmas. And the main way we do that is through a fundraiser called Galaxy Whiskey Gala. And I'm always working on stuff for Seeker's Notes. And in fact, your questions for me have sparked so many new ideas for future lists. So I feel like I have lots of stuff I can keep working on even after this project is done. So I've been running the Austin Scotch Slivers for more than 10 years, which is just an education and enthusiast group here in Austin, Texas, for people who are into Scotch whiskey, but really any kind of whiskey. And we like to get together and share our knowledge and have people from the distilleries come to educate us about their whiskeys. And um, person named Steve Harris joined the group actually during COVID when we were doing everything on Zoom, and he and I just hit it off. We're like brother and sister from different parents, and this was actually his charity that he founded. And he's originally from Scotland. And he said, "Hey, Lassie, you want to put on a whiskey show with me?" And I was like, "Yes, I do. That sounds really fun." So that's kind of how it got started. And I just love organizing people and coming up with fun things to do, events. And this seemed like a perfect match for my talents to be able to bring people together to learn about whiskeys and get to taste whiskeys, and all for a good cause.
Wonderful. I understand the March 29th gala was a highlight for many, and you've sent over some photos which we will share on screen here for our viewers.
Oh yes, we're in the final process of getting the contract work out with the hotel, and we're about ready to put the tickets on sale in July for next year's event, which is going to be March 28th. It's almost always the last Saturday in March, unless Easter falls that weekend. And we so if you go to the Galaxy Whiskey Gala website and sign up to be on our email list, you will be able to know right when the tickets go on sale and be able to take advantage of the early bird special we always offer right when we first put the tickets on sale.
Wonderful. Thank you, Catherine. And we'll leave a link to that as well. I'm just making a note here to make sure that anyone listening that would like to get additional information and sign up, they can do so again in the description. Thank you for that, Catherine. And thank you for your work in this wonderful and very interesting sounding charity. I'm sure children appreciate what it is that you and Steve Harris do.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now let's get on to the exciting topic and the purpose of this podcast, the origins of the ranking project. Let me first ask you, what inspired you to take on the ambitious task of ranking all the Seeker's Notes locations?
Well, it actually started just because I love this game so much, and I really like being in the Facebook group and chatting with people about the game. In my regular everyday life, I don't have too many people to talk to about it, so that's a lot of joy for me there. And I just thought it would be fun to have individual posts about the locations where people who were in the Facebook group could talk about if they liked that location, if they didn't like it, what was good, what was bad, what could be better, what they really never wanted to change. And I thought, well, I needed a way to figure out how to organize doing that. And so then I thought, oh gosh, that would be so much fun to make a list of my rankings of the locations from number one till currently at 144, I think we are, or 143. We're having 144 now with Mount Olympus, but Mount Olympus isn't in the this list. But eventually, I'll do an update. Maybe I don't know when, but maybe every year or something where I'll include the newer locations. And yeah, so I just thought that by organizing it that way, it would give me a framework on how I wanted to post them and just like a way in, like saying, okay, like number five on my list is this, and this is why it's number five, or, number 143 on my list is this, and this is why it's number 143, and so forth.
Now, from a general perspective, as you've just explained that you have pretty much a description and a reason for why you've um, come up with the ranking for a specific location, but can you walk us through the criteria you used when you were creating these rankings, and were there any secret formulas involved?
Uh, no secrets, no secrets at all. It's really first and foremost my feelings about it. And I'm a very feeling person, very intuitive, and very much always trying to like lead in life through my emotions. And so the very first thing I did was I just created like sheets of paper that said like best location, better locations, worst locations, and so forth. And then as I went through the list of all the locations, I would just get a feeling for where I thought that one should go. And to be honest, almost all of them stayed within those lists with a few exceptions as I went through. It was just starting out from that. And then once I got that sorted that way, then I would take the individual papers and look at, okay, within all the best locations, start like sorting them into ones I knew needed to be at the top and then sort of see where the other ones would fall. And sometimes, as I stated, even when I made the post, there's a fluidity to it because there's definitely some parts of the list where I would say some of the items are rather equal, and maybe on one day or another they could float around and interchange with each other. But I think within like what's in the best list or what's in the better list, that I'm pretty confident, I'm solid about. Like I definitely checked in even with like the top better location. Do I feel like you need to go on the best list? No, I don't. And the lowest better one, do I think you need to go down one? No, you need to stay there. So that's kind of how I did it. And sometimes within the rankings, I would think about like what are the rewards for the location or how easy or hard it is. And those would help me sort it out sometimes to put them lower or higher within that ranking.
The workshop took the top spot. What makes it your number one?
Um, so I think probably because when I was a young girl, I wanted to be a museum curator, which I didn't end up doing, but I did go to college with that in mind, and I studied. I have a degree in Latin, and I was a high school Latin teacher for many years, and I studied art history too as part of my college work. And so I think always having an interest in art and ancient history and Latin, I think that a lot of those things are evoked from the workshop location. And also I'm love crafting and doing like I like doing paper crafting, making cards and scrapbooking and things like that. So I think any kind of creative stuff is always attractive to me as well. So I think all of those components just go into a lot of what makes me love that location so much. Also, the story, I don't remember it acutely at this point, but I remember that the story when they launched the workshop was about a female who had to hide that she was a girl in order to advance. And then that was part of the story. And so kind of a little bit of female empowerment was part of the theme. And I think just going into the location with that beautiful sculpture, and then there's a bust of Caesar, and there's just objects that are related to creativity or artistry, and so there's just a lot of things that come together, and it has some good rewards, and just touches on so many areas of my life that are interesting.
Now, the bungalow came in second. What makes the bungalow location special to you?
I think for me, any kind of tropical or beach or ocean related stuff and scenery is pretty high on my list of things that bring me a lot of joy and pleasure. And I think that when that location first launched, it was just so different from previous locations. And it just, you got there and you open it up and it's just like, oh, you can just feel like the sunshine, and it just seems like a very relaxing and fun place to visit. And I don't know, I just like the little crab and just all the different animals that are there, and just the humorous things, and the lemur. It just brings me joy, and it's very relaxing.
I can definitely relate. And that lemur sometimes a challenge. Well, used to be a challenge for me. Now I'm getting used to it. The night street and tea shop both set a mood. How much does ambiance influence your enjoyment of playing those locations?
I would say pretty top. It's one of the top things. Like I said, I'm kind of going for feeling, and I think the ambiance of a location is definitely a lot of what influences the feeling. I think the night street is very ambient. And you get there and it just has just this sort of peacefulness with the crickets, and you just feel like you're out for an evening stroll. And I don't know, sometimes with seekers notes, I know like the theme is like more mysterious and dark, and then different people on Facebook will have different opinions about whether they like things to be scary or gloomier, and I'm definitely less into that. So I think sometimes people might look at the night street and think, oh, it's supposed to be like more scary or something. But to me, because it has very peaceful sounds with the crickets, and it's just kind of like nice.
Let me ask about design and nostalgia. Which location do you find most photogenic of your rankings?
Funny, this was such a great question. I like when I read this question, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such an awesome thing to ask. And this is one of them that I'll probably do a separate post about, because then it inspired me to go through and make a list from my list. And my criteria was just really, like you said, photogenic. I like let that word be the key. So it had to be pretty to my eyes, but not just pretty, but in a way that you would maybe want to see it in a magazine or an ad or something like that. And so I think my top photogenic location is the jewelry shop. I have always thought that that location was just the most gorgeous. I just love like when I opened it the first time and you just saw that chandelier, and then there's a statue there which is also neat, but there's this really comfortable couch, and the artist did this amazing job of giving you a tremendous sense of space in that room because of how it goes into other rooms with a floor to ceiling window, often another room. There's a cozy fireplace, and then of course there's lots of pretty glass cases and things to look at. So, I mean, I just think overall I'd pick the jewelry shop, but I definitely thought would say that the depths is very photogenic, and the bungalow I think is very photogenic, and some more. So I'm definitely gonna to post about the ones that I would pick overall, but jewelry shop is my top pick.
Okay. Now, when locations felt equally ranked, how did you break the tie? Was it logic, instinct, or a dice roll?
Um, I think I'm gonna have to go back to feeling again, and then sometimes the ease or difficulty and the rewards would come into play. And sometimes there are many on the list that are kind of like that are near each other, that maybe from day to day I would think, oh, maybe I'll put this one ahead or that one. So like I said, within the segments, they're pretty solidly in their correct places, but some of them might float around.
Did any location's artwork make you rethink your real world interior design goals?
I thought this was a really funny question and fun. No, but now that you asked it, I want to like go back and look at them with that in mind, because that never occurred to me. But I was like, oh my gosh, that would be fun to go do that.
Right. How did you balance gameplay challenge versus visual appeal or any other appeal in your rankings?
Um, it definitely it was a tango because I think that the the visual appeal is pretty important and how much the emotions come up for me from that going to that location. But it definitely can get pushed up or pulled down if it's easier or harder. And so, like, example, and they'll come up again, but the grotto and the lair are very challenging, and a lot of people feel like they should be in the worst list. But those are two locations that I just love visiting, and I like the visuals and I like the idea of the locations and what's there. So they end up higher on my list because of that.
Which location surprised you the most in its final ranking?
This question took a lot of thinking about because I just like there were a few. I think there was some like jostling of like how many locations I just love so much, and then trying to sort them into order in the best locations, and feeling like even as I'm posting about these best locations, I'm like, gosh, I can't believe this location is in the teens when I adore this location, but there's just so many good ones. But I'd say overall, the main one I picked to answer your question is the antique store, because this is one of the few that ended up jumping lists. And I didn't, it's such a newer location, relatively speaking, and I wasn't as aware of how much I liked it. But then as I was going through and doing this list, and I'd go back in and play some of the locations that I wasn't sure about. And then we ended up having that one in Anonymous Alliance. And I was like, wow, this location is really pretty cool and has a lot of cool visuals and nice artwork. And so I picked that one because it jumped into a much higher location than it originally started at.
So my next question is, which one was the hardest to place? Was that the location, the antique store?
No, I think nothing came to mind immediately, but some, as I said, were like harder to organize within their groupings. And I go back to the lair and the grotto maybe as the hardest because they are very challenging locations because of how dark or how much objects blend into the shadows. But so then I struggled a lot with where do I really want these to be? And I went back to that criteria of my feeling about which set they should be in, and then sort of compromise. And they kind of ended up as the last of, like, the layer is the last of the good, and the grotto is the last of the bad. Even though I hate putting the grotto in the bad, but I just right now it is so difficult. It's hard to push it up into to a different set. So I think those were the two hardest.
Have any recent updates made you rethink your rankings? And I know we're in the midst of one of the newer locations and an
Yeah.
event at this time, and you kind of touched on that at the beginning.
No, not yet. I think I will do an update at a certain point in time, and then I'll include the locations that weren't on the original list. And then at that point, I'll probably rethink some of my locations. But for now, it was a big enough project, and I don't want to like make it too complicated by changing it around too much yet.
Do seasonal events or festive decor ever influence your opinion, or were they a part of shaping your opinion when completing these rankings?
Definitely, Halloween tends to boost up locations because I like Halloween decorations quite a bit. And I don't like scary Halloween. I like whimsical Halloween, and there's a lot of good whimsical Halloween in this game. And I didn't realize that at first, but I came to realize that as I was putting things into piles and noticing, and then that kind of became apparent that, oh, well, I'm going to give this one a higher ranking because there's a cool Halloween theme to it.
No, Is there a location the community underestimates that you think deserves more love?
I thought this was a great question, Sunny. Um, I don't know, to be honest with you, what the majority of people who play Seeker's Notes think, but I do know the Illusion Hall is quite controversial, and that seems to be a quite divisive site with some people just hating it so much and never wanting to play it, and then other people just really, really loving it. And for me, I'm not a hater, but I don't play it very often because I do find it a difficult location, but it's one that I feel like I probably could master more if I forced myself to go there more often. So that's my pick for this one because I think the Illusion Hall is the most controversial location that my Tona created so far.
I've only recently started to play it a little bit more, and I'm trying to get it. I still don't understand it, but I think that is definitely a brain teaser.
Mhm.
Are there any locations you personally feel that are a bit overrated?
Um, this was a hard question because my first thought was no, but I tried to think about it because these are all such great provocative questions and really good to think about. And I decided that I would say the ballroom because I know a lot of people love playing that, especially because it gives fairly good rewards. And so people end up playing that one quite a bit. And plus, it's one we have right from the beginning. So I think those early locations that we get at the beginning of the game stay very comfortable and close to our heart as we're going through. We can always come back to those locations for like security and comfort. But I find for me personally, I don't like the ballroom all that much. It's okay, but it just doesn't give me a lot of, super warm, fuzzy feelings. So I'd pick that one.
I find it a little boring. I'm gonna have to agree with you. It's one of the earlier locations, the cafe, the train station, and the ballroom.
Mhm.
Not really too fond or excited to play them.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt sheer frustration with a particular location during gameplay?
Oh, yes. Often. I will say, like, the Sunny Yard drove me to tears during the Magister's Time Talisman when it was a main event. Oh my gosh, that location just makes me crazy. And
Why? Tell us why.
I just find the objects are just so often really difficult to find, and they're not, I don't know, for me personally, I just found them illogical sometimes, like where they ended up, or I wouldn't be able to get into a groove with them. And
Well,
that's what
you don't find a pair of scissors in the top of your treetops in your yard?
exactly. It's just so I don't know, there's just something about that location and then I would and then when you play like the way I play the Magister Time Talisman is I and especially I think at that time we weren't breaking it up into three parts, which is so much better now. So I think at that time you had to play for an hour. So, playing that location for a solid hour it was hard. Oh, and I was really, really frustrated and crying by the end of that hour. And I would just say that definitely all the ones that are on my worst list would definitely fall into areas that cause me frustration when I have to play when it's a challenge that I can't get out of, can't swap or don't want to swap or something because I don't feel like I can finish any of those locations without a tool and so just so made dark difficult locations.
This question isn't on our list, but will you be ranking the puzzles at some point? Or have you?
Actually, you did ask me that, and I would. I mean, the puzzles are for me easy because there's just four, so they're not as interesting to like maybe do a post about. I like the mosaic the best. I like treasure box second. I like the cards third and haunted lights fourth. But it is frustrating because we don't get access passes for mosaic and cards. So I kind of have to feel like in the beginning of an event, I don't play the cards and mosaic as much because I'm trying to build up access passes. But anyway, but you asked too if I would rank some other things, and I definitely think that would be future fun to do. Not the food items though, but I would probably work on the talisman and some other things because the talismans really they need a lot of organization. They're kind of a hot mess in my opinion.
Great. And I think, yes, another conversation would likely be warranted to discuss the rankings of other aspects of the game, puzzles, characters, maybe, and rewards.
Yeah. Yep.
The Seeker's Notes location you would most likely spend a day in.
Well, this is another one I'll probably do some posting about on Facebook eventually, because I went through very carefully, and I there's many I would like to visit, but they didn't make the list if I couldn't conceive of being there for a whole day, since you said spend the day there. So I sort of eliminated some that, yes, I'd like to visit a lot of them, but I don't think I'd like to spend the day. Like I wouldn't mind visiting the lair, but I definitely don't want to spend the whole day there. And I'd like to visit the Dark Square, for example, but I don't want to spend the whole day there. So my number one place that I'd like to visit and could spend at least a day, if not longer, is probably the Paragon Hotel.
Mhm.
I love hotels. I love traveling and I love staying in fancy hotels. And this just intrigues me because I want to see what else is there. I want to, like, the lobby itself is very fun and has lots of interesting things happening, but I want to see like what's up those stairs. I want to see, like, do they have a pool, and how tall are they? What do the rooms look like? Um, so that one really I think ends up being number one. And number two is the museum because, as I said, I love museums. I wanted to maybe be a museum curator at a certain point in my life. I love history, and the fact that the museum is a museum of Darkwood, and I'm, in love with this place, and I really am hungry for more information. So, I mean, I think I could just spend weeks here. It's just kind of like when I'm in London, I feel like all I do is just live in the museums because there's just so much to see. And I would definitely could just spend days in the museum here learning about Darkwood and seeing the art and contemplating it and the history. And along those same lines, the council hall ends up in number three because it's a nice place in general. It looks very interesting, but it has the archives and bureaucracy of Darkwood. And because I'm very interested in the history of Darkwood and learning more about the people there and the backstories, I feel like you could definitely spend lots of good research time in the council hall. So, I mean, those are my top three places I would go to and why. Um, I like the Seeker's house too because they gave us a house and they made it a really cool place, which I super appreciate. And every time I seek there, I just think, wow, this is so cool that they created a house for us. And it's really cozy. And it just is filled with so many interesting things. And I would just love to explore the whole entire house and see, like, what does a bedroom look like? What does a bathroom look like? What is everything that they provided for us in Darkwood that we get to live there? So that's that's that. And I'll just end with fifth one, which is the Fall House, and I have actually 18 on this list, but I'm going to post about it too. But the Fall House is number five, and that location I just love so much. And I could definitely spend a day there because it's like a Thanksgiving location, and it's a party, it's a dinner party, but it's like with your people that you really love, friends or family that you spend Thanksgiving with. And then there's the sound of the microwave going in the kitchen, which somebody commented, and when I said that there wouldn't be microwaves in Darkwood, but I can't explain it, but to me that's what it sounds like, and I think it's okay because there's lots of magic in Darkwood too, so they could have some equivalent of that. And there's just a nice warm cozy feeling there, and then that room has lots of interesting things, and there's a kitchen, and you could be cooking and having a drink and just visiting with people and sitting in all those comfy chairs, and there's a nice porch. So yeah, I could definitely go on and on with a few more, but those are my top five.
All right, and for one of our wrap-up questions, if you could spend a real day in one of the or in one of what you consider to be an unfavorable Seeker's Notes location, if you were forced to, which would you choose and why?
So this answer might surprise you, but I'm actually going to pick my very worst location, the Wonder Park. And the reason why is because, well, a couple considerations. Again, thinking about spending a whole day somewhere, I want to pick some place that have a lot to explore and a lot to discover after a whole day. And so I think that the Wonder Park would definitely fulfill that criteria because just based on what we see in the window, there looks to be a lot to explore there. And I think that the location is difficult, but if they made it a little easier, I'm sure it would become a much greater favorite of many people because the theme itself is a pleasant theme, a fair or a carnival. And just looking at, just thinking about life in general, that when you spend time dealing with things that you don't like, or like if there's a person in your life that you have trouble with, if you take time to get to know them and understand what motivates them, then sometimes that can help you appreciate them and maybe not love them, but certainly tolerate them more. And so I kind of think it might be the same, that by being able to go to the Wonder Park and see it in 3D and understand it better, it might make visiting there easier overall. So that's what I'd pick for that.
Okay, very interesting. Now, you mentioned, and this is where I discovered your incredible locations ranking list for Seeker's Notes on Facebook. I've noticed some exchange, and of course, this was not a question provided to you in advance, but I'm just curious to know how has the community responded to your list, and do you have any interesting stories that you'd like to tell before we close off this fun and exciting discussion?
I have to say that the initial response to the list was so incredible, way more than I was expecting. And that was really gratifying and lovely. And I have really enjoyed everything everyone has to say, truly. I really intended for this to be a true and genuine discussion and didn't want just people going, "Oh yeah, I like that location too." So the most interesting and the most fun have been people who've disagreed with me and have been able to provide really good rationale and reasoning about why they like or dislike it, or even if they agreed with me. So, and even one woman, Penny Dent from England, has done her own ranking and she just posted it over the weekend. So if you haven't seen that yet, you should definitely check it out because she was inspired by me and did her own. And she didn't do put her whole list up yet, but she talked about what her top 10 were and what her criteria was. And that just fills me with so much joy and pride that I inspired someone to do their own list. And I would love to see more people do that just for fun and just to really see the differences. Um, I think that overall I like hearing people like locations I don't like and explain why, because it really helps me have a different perspective on those locations and gives me an opportunity to think about them from a different perspective and go in and think about, oh, this person really loves this location. So many people like the old square. That was maybe one that had quite a few people disagreeing with me having it in my worst section. It's a great favorite of many people. And I was really surprised about that and really interested to hear about why people liked it or how they came to like it more. Um, and I I think that there's just the people that are taking the time to engage with the posts and write about it has been pretty awesome. And I hope after some people listen to this, they'll go in and add their own comments and commentary. And overall, I just love how pleasant, polite, and kind everyone is. And it's just a good thing, in this times that we're in to be able to discuss things that we disagree about or agree about, but just do it in a very courteous and polite way, and in a way that just uplifts the game in general, and just being in the Facebook group together.
It is very refreshing. And I can add to that by saying, Catherine, even in our initial 50-minute introductory call, which turned into being almost an hour long because we had so much to talk about, there were a few topics that we touched on that, both you and I just, realized that we didn't really saw eye to eye on the same thing, but it was still a very interesting conversation, which is why I'm curious to know if you'd be interested in coming back on the show to maybe discuss different aspects of your ranking list and maybe other aspects of the game in the future, especially now that there are other players, and I'll look into finding Penny's posts, but other players that are now starting to rank. But we'd love to talk with you some more and get into maybe some gossip about the game.
I think that would just be so much fun and such an honor, Sunny. I would adore being able to come back. And I've already just been telling all my loved ones about getting to be interviewed by you today, and can't wait to share this when you post it with all my friends. So thank you so much. Yes, I would adore coming back and talking to you more.
Well, you are most welcome. And I must say, Catherine, thank you so much for joining the Sunny Reads podcast and to discuss Seeker's Notes, your insights, your rankings, and your passion for both gaming and giving back to your local community truly shines. It's been a delight hearing how your love for Seeker's Notes and your charitable spirit have woven together. And so now, as we for sure wrap up now, what's next for you? Can you tell the audience or listeners whether it's another project in the Seeker's Notes universe or something exciting in real life? But I think mainly we wanted to hear about Seeker's Notes.
Absolutely. Well, believe me, I always have lots going on. I do I'm taking people to Scotland on a whiskey tour next summer, so I'm working on that, and I'm always busy with finding new activities for my group. But as far as the Seeker's Notes go, there's still quite a bit of locations to post on. I've not even gotten half of them posted yet, so that's going to take some more time. Your questions today have definitely given me some interesting posts that I'll make somewhere along the way. I might even make them before I finish. But you also like kind of touched on ranking other things, and that might be a way to go, but I might just take on some other project within, things that we could discuss about Seeker's Notes. There's Seekers used to have a different page for beginners, and I really liked being a mentor on that page, and I'd really love to have them revive that and maybe help them do that. Something I've been, wanting to do because I love helping people with the game, and that's a lot of my drive in spending the time and energy on this.
Well, we admire your drive and truly appreciate your time and energy spent on doing this for us gamers. And you're my very first Sunny Reed Seeker's Notes podcast guest. So congratulations to you on that too. I forgot to mention.
It's super wonderful and super exciting. I appreciate it so much.
So coming up, we will be interviewing or we'll be talking with, or I will be talking with one of the game developers, and we'll be posting it here as one of the upcoming podcasts here for Seeker's Notes. And I will definitely keep in touch with Catherine to see what exciting new topic we can bring to our listeners in the very near future, hopefully. And to the listening audience, if you're ready to explore these mysterious locations for yourself, don't forget you can download the free Seeker's Notes game using the link in the video description and the pinned comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's discussion. Drop us a comment, share your favorite location, let Catherine know what you'd rank as number one. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust your instincts, and most importantly, Happy seeking. Bye, Catherine. Thanks for joining me.
Bye. Thank you.